How to buy a house in Spain as a foreigner.
To buy a property in Spain in accordance with the legislation, the first step is to check the legal situation.
What taxes do foreigners pay in Spain?
In total, there are 5 Spanish taxes that every foreigner is obliged to pay. 1.
How are inheritances regulated in Spain?
Inheritance tax is a progressive tax.
Where to apply for the Golden Visa?
The first thing you should do is go to the Spanish consulate in the country where you live. There you can request all the necessary documentation to obtain it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today on Wednesday, the 20th of July, 2022. Today, we've got the privilege to have 2 experts on property. And I might have on the other side over there, I have Michael Davies. Hello, Michael, from Almeria.
Hello, Hello, Pedro.
Hello, Ignacio.
Hello, Michael. Yes, and we have here Pedro Heredia as well from Alicante. Hello, Pedro.
Hello, Ignacio. Hello, Michael. Good afternoon.
Right. Okay. Today we're going to talk about the subject of buying a property in Spain, but this time we're going to talk about doing as an investment and applying for a touristic license. As you know, you need to appoint an independent lawyer to do all the due diligence in Spain about buying a property. But in the meanwhile, you need to know that if you want to do it as an investment and you want to rent it out as a touristic apartment or villa, you need to qualify with some requirements that later on Pedro and Michael will explain to you. We'll talk about taxes, about buying a property, and with regards of renting out your property as a resident and as a non-resident. I'm going to pass it over now to Michael. He will explain to us about what people need to know about buying a property in Spain. Later on, Pedro will explain about touristic, and then we'll speak about the taxes. We're going to spend 1 hour of our time today trying to explain to you all the ins and outs, and you could please start sending us all your questions. I might take the opportunity to thank you all for the nice comments you send us when you see us at the offices and you encourage us to carry on giving the expat community all these advice. I'll tell you that in August, the office will carry on, but we'll stop a little bit on the videos and we will carry on with a lot of strength in September. So I'm going to pass over Michael Davies, an expert in law, property law, inheritance. Over to you, Michael.
Hello, Ignacio. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, well, my name is Michael Davies. I'm a Spanish lawyer. My firm is called Davies Abogados, Solicitors and Barristers, and we're based down in the Andalucía region. For those that don't know, that's all the Costa del Sol, Almeria, Malaga, Seville, Cádiz, Huelva, etc. Okay, so regarding the purchase of the property in Spain, Ignacio?
Yes. Can you see us?
Okay, I'm only looking at a blank screen. Okay. I can't see myself. Okay. Okay. So regarding the buying of the property in Spain, obviously the first thing that you need to do is decide where you want to buy. Spain's a very diverse country, and we have 17 different regions, and they've all got very different. They're very different between them, so you sort of need to shop around and think about what region you actually like best, and then decide obviously with a city, coastal properties, all these sort of things before making the investment. Okay, regarding the purchase itself, it works very similar in all regions of Spain, and it would work in the same way regardless of whether you buy it to live yourself, retire, or whether you're going to buy it as an investment and later on register the property for rentals. That Pedro can explain how that would happen later. So basically the first thing you would need to do, what I would recommend after narrowing down the area of Spain where you want to purchase, is I would find yourself a lawyer that can then take you through the whole process once you've found the specific property. People tend to find that once they find the property they like, everything moves very quickly because the estate agent basically just wants a deposit put down because they want to do their job, which is to sell the property. So if you have the lawyer lined up, it's everything's much easier. Okay, so the first thing that you'll come across is when you locate the property that you want, is that the estate agent will probably be asking you for a €3,000 reservation or something thereabouts. And they'll tell you that that's to tie the property down until you can sign a full deposit contract, your lawyer can do all the searches, and you can sign what is in Spain the normal 10% deposit contract. In the old days, we used to always recommend, well, don't do that. Don't put the money down. But when there's a market that's booming like it is at the moment, sometimes it's a necessary evil to put that €3,000 down. If you've got the lawyer lined up, like I mentioned before, just give him a buzz and ask him if he knows who the estate agent is, and he'll probably say, "Oh, Michael, €3,000. These guys, they'll be okay." Or don't touch them. don't touch them. But that's what I recommend with that. So basically, you'd find the property that you like, you'll put down a reservation, they'll do a flimsy sort of reservation document for you. And the next step then is the lawyer. Now, dedicate serious time to choosing the lawyer, because it's very important both at the moment of the actual purchase itself, but later on with other things that you'll be needing as you move forward, like your Spanish wills. Maybe in the future there'll be an inheritance procedure, hopefully many years later. If you've got to register the property for rentals, like Pedro's going to explain later, you'll need someone for that. Annual tax returns, there's different things that you'll need a lawyer for. So if you get the right one from the beginning, it's always a great thing. Okay, so basically, once you put down the reservation, you'll go and speak to your lawyer. Your lawyer will give you a budget in writing. Basically, taxes and fees, we could go on for an hour explaining how all this works. But basically, if you're buying a second-hand property, the taxes and fees will all come anywhere between 11% and 13%. There are certain differences regarding transfer tax, depending on which region of Spain you're going to purchase in. So you need to ask your solicitor in your particular region what the transfer tax is. But everything included will be somewhere between 11 and 13%. It's a bit more expensive when you buy a new property because VAT is more expensive than the transfer tax. Okay, so that would be the amount of those taxes and fees. Included in that, the numbers I just mentioned, would be the solicitor's fees. Most solicitor's fees for the conveyance itself work around the 1% mark plus VAT, but most solicitors have a minimum fee, which varies a lot between solicitors, and they sometimes have a maximum fee as well for very high value properties. Okay, so once you've located a lawyer, the lawyer will say that you need to organize a power of attorney, at least that would be the most normal way. And with that power of attorney, you'll be giving him the faculty to request your Spanish tax numbers, open up a Spanish bank account, and handle the purchase for you. Okay, so for that, you'll need to go to a Spanish notary. Most solicitors have one nearby where they can just go in and have a power of attorney organized. Failing that, or maybe because you haven't made the decision to purchase until after you're back in the UK, he can send you a power of attorney to be signed in the UK, which is a bit more cumbersome, but it's just it can be done as well. So basically, the solicitor will then request all the paperwork from the estate agent. Once it's been retained, he'll do all the necessary searches and head and negotiate towards a 10% deposit contract. The 10% deposit contract holds the complete transaction together and establishes all the conditions for timeline, price, and all the basic conditions of the actual transaction. Normal transaction time in Spain is anywhere between, let's say, 3 weeks and 3 months. That would be reasonable. Sort of an average would be about 2 months. In other words, you do a reservation, 2 or 3 weeks later, you sign a 10% deposit contract, and you set a completion date within normally around 2 months. Before the completion is due, you'll need to have all your money in your Spanish bank account that your solicitor will have opened for you, and he will then organize the drafts, etc., from there to do the actual completion. The moment that you complete at the notary, the property is yours. It's a foul-proof system. The deed gets sent into the property register, and then the solicitor in the background will pay your transfer tax for you, or document tax if it was a new property, pay the notary, pay the registrar, and about a month and a half later, or 2 months after the completion, the solicitor will call you in so that he can basically handle your title deed and all your general paperwork. Most solicitors that I know will, at the same time that they issue you with a budget for the purchase, will recommend that you make Spanish wills dealing with your Spanish assets. My main expertise is actually inheritance. We handle many inheritance cases, and I can say without any doubt whatsoever that you should make a Spanish will at the moment of purchasing the property. It's not that it's obligatory. No, it's not obligatory, but it should be, because basically it's a mess if you haven't got a Spanish will to deal with your Spanish assets. For those that worry about the Spanish system of obligatory heirs that they may have read about somewhere, that this business that Spanish people can't leave everything to their spouse if they've got children, etc., they don't need to worry, because there's a EU directive that permits that Spain applies regardless of reciprocity. When you make your Spanish will, your solicitor will explain to you that you can actually make an express choice of your English law to determine how you're allowed to distribute your estate. So there's English law, Australian law, Canadian law, wherever you're from. And with that, we don't have this problem of the obligatory heirs that you may have read about. There also are things that sometimes you may want to talk to a solicitor about before you make the purchase is inheritance tax. The same as transfer tax is not the same in all the regions, but the difference is not very large. Inheritance tax, there is differences depending on the region of Spain where you purchase. And in the case of inheritance tax, it can make quite a substantial difference. So it may not be a deal breaker, and shouldn't be the main thing to make you decide where to purchase in Spain, but at least you need to know what the difference is between the regions. That's it in a nutshell, Ignacio. As I would explain the situation sort of to Auntie Mary over lunch, it's just a quick explanation. There's lots to it.
Before you quit, could you give us just 1 minute about bank guarantees if they're buying off plan?
Okay, so if you purchase secondhand, the solicitor will do all your searches. He'll make sure it's all good. That's perfect. Now, regarding new properties, in the past, we know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were people that lost their money on properties under construction in the last boom and bust. Now, that doesn't need to happen. In fact, didn't need to happen back then. All you need to do is make sure that when you purchase the property, you make sure that against each stage payment, the builder issues you with a bank guarantee, which is basically an insurance policy that says that if the builder goes bust or for any other reason can't deliver within the timeline of the contract, your money is guaranteed by an insurance policy. Now, these policies are actually obligatory, okay, but you need to ask for them. In other words, your lawyer will do this for you, but just make sure that each time you make a stage payment, in arrears of that stage payment, an insurance, a policy, physical policy will be issued on that stage payment. Just make sure that when you make the next payment, you've got the policy in place for the previous ones before that one. So that's very well brought up. That is something that's definitely very important if you're buying a property under construction. If you're buying a property under construction, you may find that the lawyers' fees in Spain are actually more than that 1% we mentioned before. So there's a bit more to it because of the control over the insurance policies and things like that. So if your lawyer has done things correctly, after he's handled your purchase deed and all your paperwork, he should have set up electricity, water, rates, rubbish, and community of owners by direct debit against your account. And then that will just leave you with your annual obligations, which will be different regarding whether you're a non-resident or a resident. Because I think that the idea of the webinar today is to talk about rental properties. I pass you back to Pedro, who's an expert in everything to do with taxation of non-residents in Spain, both as businesses or non-businesses, and he will also explain the process of registration of a property for rental, which is obligatory before you can actually put the property on the market. I think that's it, Ignacio.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Very well explained. And I'm going to pass it over to Pedro. He's the one who's going to tell you a little bit how to apply for a touristic license. Over to you, Pedro.
Okay, thank you, Ignacio. I'm going to use the board in order to explain about the license of touristic license, as is well mentioned by Ignacio and Michael. Well, if you are thinking about buying a property in Spain, but also to rent it out and get profit, you are thinking about, okay, well, I would like this to advert into a platform like Airbnb or Window or HomeAway or Rentalia. There are many of them. And well, before buying a property, and this is the first step that you need to take into account, before buying a property or while you are buying the property, you need, in the due diligence, needs to be checked if that property is going to be able to obtain a touristic license. So first step is, this is why it was important, and we start this webinar with buying a property in Spain, because buying a property in Spain obviously is the first step. But our recommendation is always, if you intend to buy, to rent it out and advert into a platform or use it like in a short period of time, like vacation holidays, and in order to rent it out, then you need to have a license. So first step is, while you are buying a property, you need to check if can be done or not, because at the end, if your intention, your objective is to buy with, or is going to be in the future with a license of touristic apartments, then obviously you need to do it in the first step before you make a big investment. We have different clients, Ignacio and Michael, as they come to, I mean, I would say mostly every week, we have asked questions, they say, well, I want to buy this property and I want to rent it out. Okay, well, firstly, we need to check if this can be done or not. Okay, and how do we obviously to check this? Well, obviously, the license of occupation, license of touristic license, I always change the wording of occupation and touristic license. What is a license of touristic apartments or properties? It's a license that permits you to be included and registry in a registry in any area of Spain. In this case, is where we live, where we are right now, based in Valencia region, but could also be, as is Michael, in Andalusia or in a different region in Madrid, because the rules are compulsory in each region, has different rules in these cases. And that registry will allow you in order to be inscribed and be able to advert and use it as a touristic objectives, vacational, holidays, and with a short period of time, maximum 2 months per person. That's another issue, another requirement. I will probably forget some requirements because there are a lot, but I will try to say most of them. Okay. So once we have already checked that it's okay to buy a property, obviously you buy a property, you make a perfect due diligence with an independent lawyer. And then obviously when you have bought the property and you have a completion, you have already signed in a notary, you have a deed, it's already duly inscribed in the land registry, and you are the owner, but also could be that you get a license of occupation because you have a right to use it, even though you are not the owner, but this is a different issue. Once you are the owner, then you will be able to apply for the license of touristic apartments or flats or properties. Let's name it that way. And there are 2 steps. First step is urbanistic rules, which is planning rules. First of all, if you buy a property and it's going to be used as a property, you have to have a license that that property is going to be used as a property. Let's make an example. If you buy a warehouse and then you want to use it as a property for living in a flat, that will not be done. So firstly, you will have to have the authorization of the city council, which is a planning rule, in order to be able to use it as a touristic apartment, flat, or property. So there are authorization by the city council and then inscription on the tourism registry. But first of all is the authorization by the city council. And what do I need to do in order to get the urbanistic or planning authorization? Well, we need to make an application. We need to contract or instruct an architect in order to make a declaration that a property is a living property in order to be used as a touristic apartment or flat. Obviously, when you buy the property, it's extremely important that when you make the due diligence, you buy the property with a license of occupation. In this case, in Valencia region, obviously is this way. In Andalusia, I understand there has been some issues and some changes. Probably Michael will be able to give us an update on that. But obviously, it's something is compulsory. Obviously, you are using the property to live. Obviously, whenever you apply for a declaration in order to be used as a touristic apartment or flat, then it has to have previously the authorization to live in that property. Obviously, these planning rules have specific rules. For each municipality has specific rules. For example, if it's a first floor or it's a ground floor, if it's a fourth floor, needs an elevator, or if it is a country house, or it is a house that has just one room, for example. So different rules with different city councils. So it is important that whenever you're going to buy a property in this specific place, for example, Alicante City or Valencia City has more difficulties to obtain a license of touristic apartments than if you do it in a town, even though it's a countryside town, for example. So you need to take where it's going to be able to apply for and take previously if it has a license of occupation, and also if the property obviously at the end in some way it will obtain the license of occupation. There are also possibilities, Ignacio, that you may buy a property with a license, and that is not a problem because you will be able to change the ownership of the name of that license into your name. So that's not a problem with it. And that is fast. It's a fast process. Okay. Once you say that, once you obtain a declaration by an architect and needs to be submitted into a registry, a tourism registry, in order to be inscribed. To get a certification from a city council may take 1 month. And then once you submit into the touristic registry, it may take, let's say, 2 or 3 months maximum. So it may take around, let's say, 3 or 4 months, more or less, in order to get a license. So you need to be prevent in order to, if you buy it in January, you will be able to come into the summertime, because attraction on clients probably will be higher. But if you do it in November, obviously it will be good. But if you do it in July, you will not be able to rent it in August, for example. Okay, that's also important in order to start. And once you apply for the touristic registry, they are going to give you a number. So it's going to be a number. What is going to describe, this is your specific number, this is specific, it's like a plate, it's like a registry number, it's like an ANI number, for example. Let's say that. And once you get that number, obviously you will have to add that and you will be able to use it with platforms. For example, Airbnb or different platforms, they obligate you that if you don't have a license, you will not be able to add it. And if they do it, they will be able to receive some fines, and also as well as you. So you cannot advert the property or the Airbnb or this kind of platforms will not be able to use it without this registry number that they're going to give you. That registry will want you to confirm that you're going to want to register the property during the 5 years time. So after 5 years or every 5 years, you need to inform them that you want to continue with the license. That's also important. For those who obtain the license before the 7th of May of 2021, we'll have to inform also some specific number, which is a cadastral reference into this registry. Probably they didn't do it. In most of them, I would say did it, but many of them probably didn't do it. So if someone has already a license of touristic license, we probably have to take that if it was given before the 7th of May 2021. And another issue obviously important is like you have to have a control of clients. Obviously you have to have a control of clients and you need to inform police who are the clients, where the time that they're going to stay. And that's important because probably the police or Guardia Civil, they will be able to require you about this. Also important. Also important about the database. Obviously, we lawyers, we have a very accurate information about database because of the information that the clients give to us. But if you are renting the property into a touristic license, you have to protect also the information, personal information of clients. So you have to comply the rules of data protection about the information that you're going to receive from clients. And important issues really also about touristic apartments. Also, if you're buying a property, for example, in a community of owners where it says different owners are using different spaces, for example, a swimming pool, for example, an elevator. I mean, obviously, we highly recommend to check. Also, we start from the starting point when you buy the property, to take the statutes, to take the community owners rules in order to say what I'm going to be able to use, how I'm going to be able to use the property, because may limit in some ways the situation about the rental, or maybe increase the fees of participating on the costs of the community of owners. So this is something that needs to be checked also before buying the property. Obviously, the touristic licenses are, would say, extremely important, but there are it's something that always is explained to clients. There are different kind of renting. Obviously, the long-term contracts. If you buy a property and you want to rent it out to long-term contract, that not needs a touristic license. If you want to rent the property in a short period of time, when someone comes into Spain or someone comes into even though vacation and comes into because is working in some area, and it's a short period of time, it's not needed in case that you don't advert in a platform, in case that you don't use it as if it were a hotel, like cleaning clothes. I mean, if you don't use it that way, you don't need a license, a touristic license. Yeah. But if you're going to do it, and most of our clients wants to advert into a platform in order to get I would say a really good profit, because we obviously see that we see the figures, and obviously we are seeing that it's a good business, but a good business that needs to be conducted properly. Okay, Ignacio, I think this is to start. I think it's a brief scenario about the touristic license. My recommendation is that to check once you buy the property, before you buy the property, that is going to be done. It's going to happen. Important to have a license of occupation, about due diligence, and important that you fulfill obviously the two steps, the planning issues regarding this specific situation about that property in that municipality, and then obviously to do it correctly in order to inscribe the property into the registry. Everything is done or can be done. I would say it's almost an obligation to be done electronically. We do it in our office to represent clients. We do it electronically with digital certifications on representing the clients and also ourselves.
Pedro, do they need to have insurance as well for it?
Good point, Ignacio. That is a compulsory. It's an obligation to have we call it as seguro responsabilidad, which is a civil liability insurance.
And would it be recommended then to apply for the urbanistic plan while they are buying the property before they really complete, isn't it? It will be better to apply for the certificate to know whether it's compatible or not.
Exactly. It's something that obviously we recommend clients whenever someone is buying a property, just to start this process, to be able to get that specific documents. Because once you get this document, I would say 99% of the situation is going to be straightforward.
Yeah.
And that document gets in 1 month. So what we recommend is that obviously when you buy a property, normally it takes 2 or 3 months. So at the starting point, to apply for that, to be sure that it's going to happen, and obviously to include a clause in the contract about that. So obviously the vendor knows about that, and you will be able to have an exit door in case it's not going to happen. And obviously if it's going to be given, then perfect, you complete and you know 99.99% that you're going to get.
So it might be worth it probably to appoint a surveyor that the very first time they apply for this certificate, correct? I mean,
first thing, a surveyor or architect, we call it an architect, really. It's like someone who is going to go to the city council, is going to make the proper requirements, is going to make the application, the submission of a planning certification in order to be sure that at the end, because the vendor, once we ask the vendor, will not know it. Once we ask in many occasions to the agent, we don't know it.
No.
So it's something that we need to do it properly with independent professional in order to be sure that it's going to happen, in order to obviously to make the investment in that property. Right. And now that we have spoken about buying property, obviously with intention to rent it out with maybe a possibility of a touristic license, an important issue always is if I'm going to rent it, I'm going to have to declare income in Spain as resident and non-resident. So Ignacio, I think it's a good point, a good pillar in order just to finalize this explanation.
I think Michael wants to say something to you, Pedro, yeah? Michael, I think we cannot hear you. I think the microphone is off.
Okay. Before you jump into the taxation, which will be very interesting, I just wanted to ask you. I don't know if you're seeing it in the Valencia region or not, but there is this thing that some community of owners are trying to make agreements at their general meetings to make it illegal to rent out on these platforms because they've got problems with the neighbors, etc. I can see we've seen that various clients get very heated up over this situation. From what we can see, and I don't know, maybe you know more about this. When people are taking these things to court, from what we can see is in general, these decisions made by the community of owners to not allow someone to rent them out. I think in general, the courts are saying that those decisions are illegal, but I'm not 100% certain. I think it's one of these sort of things that could go both ways through the courts. So I just wanted to say that what we're saying to our clients, I don't know if you're, is when somebody tells us, Michael, for us, we're buying this property just to rent it out. That is our thing. And it's very important for us, otherwise we wouldn't buy it. What we're sort of in general doing is we're approaching the community of owners and we're asking for the minutes of the last 2 or 3 years just to see, to do as much as we can. In other words, to at least see whether this is a subject that is coming up, that it's a deal for them, because some people obviously will go in and say, look, Michael, I reckon that I'll just fight it if they if they go against this or whatever. But some people just don't want to join a battle. So once they find out what the situation is in the community, and if they see that there's something going on, they prefer just not to purchase in that block. I don't know if you're coming across this or not, or what you're doing when it turns
Yeah,
up.
Michael, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, obviously we have had some issues on questions. We have a case that obviously the community of owners, what they did was approve an increase of fees to be paid to the community.
Okay.
So the increase it was in this case, what the argument was obviously at the end, if it's going to be rented it's going to be used by different clients, and obviously it's going to increase the use, the management. So it was increased 20% of the fee that should have been paid by that specific property. For example, if it was per 3 months at 200 euros, it was going to be 240 euros, for example. So it was increased the use on that. And obviously what you're saying is a point that I like, because obviously you get an authorization on planning issues. I mean, your property is going to be used in that way. You are going to get it authorization on planning issues. And at the end, you're going to register it accordingly to the planning rules and accordingly, obviously, to the touristic requirements on that specific property. Obviously, there are different properties. We have as a flat, or it's a country house, or it's a hotel. We call it also pension, hostal, hotel apartamento, apartments with hotel with apartments. There are different kind of. Obviously, we're not gonna. This is too long. It's too extensive. But I assume that this kind of situations that are being approved by the community of owners are. I would say it's illegal. Obviously, this is going to be this scenario about the court is happening in obviously in a favor of the planning permissions that are getting through these city councils. But this community of owners, very little, I would say. But it's a good question that you're saying, because it has happened. Yeah.
Actually, I think Michael and Pedro, that actually it happened to one of our clients who wanted to buy as an investment, and the community started being very difficult. Now, the client needs to know that you need to contest or appeal any minute of the community, as Pedro stated, that is against the law, because if you already have a touristic place with a license, or they cannot stop your use. And
I mean, this, Michael, what you said is extremely important. Imagine that the case that you want to buy that way, and at the end, maybe your lawyer did not make a good due diligence, that's another issue. But at the end, you realize, and the statute has been approved, and there's a forbidden in order to use that property as a touristic license. So you have bought a property to do that, and then some community says that not. So that situation is, for me, firstly, on buying a property, it should be an issue in order to say the vendor declares that there is no any forbidden on that kind of use. And I will recommend what you've said, Michael, also to check not just the city council, I was said by Ignacio, to check that I'm going to take if the property with a surveyor, with an architect, that the property will have a use in order to obtain authorization for planning law, but also to check with the community administrator to check if in the last 2 or 3 years there is some issues about this. What is happening? Yeah, I agree with that, Michael. I agree with that.
Yeah.
In the due diligence, I think that is important, and the very first beginning on the due diligence when you buy the property.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree because actually the due diligence.
Yeah, Ignacio,
Yeah,
we recently had a purchase for an expensive property in Benalmádena. We were handling the sellers and the buyer solicitor, and it surprised me, but it worked. I understand now. He insisted that before they put it in the contract, that they wanted to, they would only go ahead with the purchase if there was no issue with rentals in that block. And the buyer's solicitor insisted on going to the annual general meeting and posed the question at the annual general meeting, is there an issue? And clearly there was a very big issue in the community of owners between those in favor of the Airbnb rentals. It was a very tensioned block. So they decided not to purchase on the back of that, even though he knew that if it went to court, it would probably be okay, etc., etc. He just thought my client's just not interested in entering into a problematic situation. So I learned from that experience of me being on the other side. And I think that this colleague of mine did a very good job, on the behalf of his client. He was just, his client was from Denmark. He didn't want any problems, and he didn't want to definitely join any legal battles, even if he was going to win them. He just said, go to the meeting. If anyone jumps up and starts saying that he's very unhappy with people running around half naked at 2 a.m. because of the rentals, then he prefers not to purchase. And that's what he did, not purchase. So I think that's a
good point, Michael, what you've said. I mean, regarding the due diligence at the beginning needs to be checked out. That's a good point.
That's a good point. And you don't want to start a legal battle with the community.
Exactly.
Because the whole purchase, the whole aim, it will be to buy a property in Spain in a safe way, with the purpose of a business, not to have any issues. So as long as you find any issues, probably our recommendation will be to pull out. Why will you need, unless you really want to put up with all the stress, cost and expenses?
Or if you are able
you need to be
make
prepared.
just to renegotiate the price, probably.
Yeah, but as Pedro stated as well, the touristic license is one way of a business. You could still rent it out as you always did, like long-term or short-term.
Absolutely.
So it's just a different method of a touristic purpose. Now, let me be very brief here. I'm going to explain to you a little bit, because Pedro and Michael mentioned about the taxes, and I'm going to explain to you a little bit, if you're interested, how it works in a calendar year. We're talking about 2022, and we are here in July, right? Now, the question will be, Ignacio, now I bought a property, it was all legal, it was all correct, I'm going to start to rent it out, okay? In Spain, as you know, if you spend more than 183 days in a calendar year, you are considered to be resident, tax resident in Spain. So you've got 2 options. For those of you who are listening, who are non-resident, who stay less than 183 days in a calendar year, from January to December, and for those who are residents and stay more than 183, and they need to do different tax applications, tax self-assessment forms. Right, let's go with the one that you are coming over here, you are more than 183 days, and you start doing your business, let's say, because if you're going to have like more than 1, 2, 3, 4, like a real business, probably we might recommend you, depending on the figures, to set up an SL company and to run it as a business. But let's say you just want to invest it as an individual and you want to make a little bit more money, and then you have probably your further pension in the future, which is like individual's investment. Now, the situation we are today on the 20th of July, you will buy today, and then you will start receiving money. Let's assume, Pedro, that we've got all legal, it's all legal, we've got the license, we've got the certificate up and running. So let's start getting money. You start earning here, let's say, €1,000 a month, just to give you an example. And you will have expenses, let's say, water, electric, community fees, insurance, etc. So you'll make a profit of 700 euros. As a resident, you need to lodge all this information, income minus expenses, once a year. And the time is April to end of June, right, of the following year. So remember, this year you're resident, you're doing the business, you're doing income minus expenses, net figure, then you need to do it once a year. The difference on taxations for residents, I'm talking, here you don't have any allowance because it's a business. You're going to be taxed on 100% of the net figure, okay? That as a resident, okay? Now, let's say you are a non-resident. So remember, residents once a year with your income tax return, and you need to keep everything. And I really recommend you to keep your books in order. Keeps all the utility bills in your name with your NI number, with your TIE, everything, because tax office might ask you for copies of that. Now, touristic apartments, you'll be taxed on the net, and the taxation will be based on the 100% of the net figure. However, you might say, Ignacio, how about if I do long-term rentals? Nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Right, you will have exactly the same. You don't need a license for that. And you only pay 40% of the net. So you're going to be taxed on your marginal rate only on your 40% of your net. So if you're making 700, you will only be taxed on 40% of 700. So they give you big allowance in Spain. A lot of people don't know, but that's the truth so far. Okay, every year you need to update the tax laws. Now let's talk if you were non-resident, and we need to make a difference whether you are European or non-European, because if you are European, then you need to do, let's say you don't rent it out, non-resident tax, European, once a year, right? You don't need to do it in April, May, and June. You need to do it the following year from January to December. And you need to do it once a year based on your SUMA bill or EB bill, and you will pay the tax per person as a non-resident tax if you don't rent it out. How about if you rent it out? Very simple. You will have income minus expenses. From the net, you will pay the tax. And if you're European, you will pay from the net 19% of your profit. And you will do it every quarter, right? First, second, third, and fourth. Obviously, it might depend. If you rent it out one quarter, you don't rent it on the other. So there is certain things you need to do. Two different forms. You rent it out, you don't rent it out. Okay? Remember, European, 19%. How about if you're non-European? Unfortunately, it is more expensive. It's 24% of the gross, not of the net. So this needs to be looked into to see how you could legally put the whole case to minimize, because here is going to be a difference. And you need to do exactly the same. Non-resident, non-European, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. But 24% of the gross. It is important for you to understand this situation in order to make decisions. Because obviously, if you are committed to set up a business, probably you might end up set up a company, obviously not for just one, because the running cost is going to take you more, but probably if you're committed to do a business, then probably might be worth it to set up an SL, and the SL, the first year and the two following, since it's a new company, will be 15% of the net, and then later on you'll have 25%. Okay, now I'm gonna pass it over to one friend. He's gonna just take us for a little bit to just explore Spain for a minute. And we're going to start with the questions. And actually, Michael, Pedro, very interesting questions. So over to you, Juanfran.
You can't stop thinking about it. That hidden cove, just for you. That little hideaway in the mountains. Or that beautiful postcard town. Dreaming about enjoying the fresh air again. Feeling the sun on your skin. Exploring. Walking. Traveler, there is no path. Paths are made by walking. Never stop dreaming. Spain will wait.
Okay, thank you very much. Juanfran, I'm going to pass over to Pedro. He's got it.
Okay, well, let's start with the questions.
Yeah, let's go for it.
We are running out of time, really. And well, let's start with some of the questions. Let's start with Kim. Hello, Kim. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for asking. I think it's a really interesting question. I don't know if Michael is going to be available right now. I'm not sure if he's here.
Michael had to leave for a minute, but okay, we could take it on.
Well, thank you, Kim. I will read it literally, and then we will be answering between Ignacio and myself. So it's about due diligence on conveyancing. When purchasing a property in Spain, is a conveyancing report a compulsory legal requirement? And then the following question is, does a conveyancing report automatically include a structural engineer report? Does it include all the licenses and permissions? What does a conveyancing report include? It is required to do this every year. Well, that's very interesting what Kim is saying to us. Obviously, what we said at the beginning and Michael said, obviously, we always recommend to instruct an independent lawyer in order to represent you on buying the property. A report on conveyancing is not an obligation, but it's always a recommendation. So obviously, a report can be made in like a formally report made by a lawyer, where it includes the situation about the property, the situation about licenses, the situation about that can be included, a situation about an architect has checked the property and has seen this and that that report can be made and can be required to a lawyer. Obviously, will be an agreement between the lawyer and the client. But it's extremely important, I mean, to assume what are going to be the what is going to consist the due diligence. You're going to do it with your lawyer. I mean, your lawyer will have to say, well, I'm going to do this, and that. And obviously, in a legal document that obligates the lawyer to make a report in order to being able to inform you about if it's recommended to buy a property, if it's legal, it's not legal, what is happening about if the property needs to do some updates in the cadastral, in the land registry, if the license of occupation, for example, is not well done, is not given, needs to be applied again, or if it is any planning file against the property. So, and also with all properties, in many occasions with all properties, and what we recommend is to instruct an architect. In many occasions, I would say, mostly, I mean, if it's an apartment, a new apartment, obviously is not something to be done unless you want to just invest a little bit more money. But we always send an architect make a checking at the beginning, a basic check, in order to say, well, this is the property, and just give it around, see that the structure is more or less okay. It's a basic report. Obviously, we can focus and dive into a lot more accurate report, but in many occasions are extremely recommended. So it is, I think, Kim, is a really good question, and I think it's something that you will be able to require in order to have a legal report, where it includes also an architect report about the property that you are buying. Okay. Good. Okay, well, let's move on. Eric, thank you very much, Eric, also to joining us, to participating in this webinar, and obviously to make the effort to give us this question. I will read it literally. It says, we have a neighboring villa property close to our villa, which is being rented out. We have checked with our local tourist office, and this property does not appear to have a tourist license listed in their records. We are encountering noise problems from the property, and the owner doesn't do anything at all. I assume that if it has no tourist license, then the income earned maybe is not even not rented, not declared into the tax office. How do I report this illegal activity to the local authority and the tax authorities? That's a really good question. And I think it's happening a lot.
Actually, Eric, well, we'll recommend you to report it to your town hall, what's going on, what's happening, because noise doesn't matter whether it is touristic or not. Noise is not allowed to certain time, and you can report it to the authorities. If you're in a town hall, you can report it to the town hall. Now, with regards to the tax authorities, we really don't know whether he declares that or not. Probably you declare it, the income, but you don't have the license. So I don't think it goes together. You could report it to the tax authorities, but doesn't really mean that
maybe it's declaring it.
Maybe it's declaring it without a license.
But that will have to be informed the tax office with there are some areas in order to inform the tax office. But having said that, also you can inform the touristic registry office, and they have like a plan of inspection.
Yes,
they have some inspections. There are different inspections every single day just to check that some properties are being rented out with a license of touristic or not. So you have to report that into the touristic registry as well as the municipality. That's extremely important.
That's good. And as I said, Eric, reporting the noise straight away, whether they've got license or not, that should go straight away to the local police of your town hall. Okay, whether you report it to the touristic board or you could report it to the tax, but the one who are gonna act are gonna be the police. Okay, but yes, it might be an option. Let's go with Clive.
Okay,
yes.
Clive, we already have several more apartments in Benidorm, and it looks like that have been trying successfully to get licenses for them. How should we go about obtaining them? The only one we have been successful is getting in the one in Albir, in the Albir area near Benidorm, which comes under Alfa del Pi. Alfa del Pi is the city council, the municipality, which covers also Albir. That is in Costa Blanca area. That took 2 years to get it. Well, 2 years is extremely rare. I mean, I would say strange. I mean, the period of time is 1 month, maybe it could be a little bit more in order to obtain the planning permission. The planning, let's say, that is going to be able to be used for touristic purposes according to planning rules, and then to registry it may take 2 or 3 months. So probably the period of time maybe will be like, let's say 3 or 4 months, sometimes a little bit more, because there are some things that needs to be substantiated or has not been informed properly, or maybe as a delayment on the city council, but not too much.
But I think, Clive, I don't know whether you order or you instruct the services of a surveyor. First question I will ask is whether it's compatible in that area to be a touristic. And number 2, they should tell you why it's taking so long. I mean, like, is it about COVID? Is it because they run out of people? Is it because apparently you're never going to get it for some reason? So to be honest, I will arrange an appointment at the town hall, either with you or just your surveyor, because it's compulsory to have a surveyor report for this purpose, so you don't need to waste time.
Okay, let's go to the following question. Mandy, thank you, Mandy, for joining us also on my questions. With a touristic license, there is a limit to get to the length of an individual rental in weeks or months. I think I said it's 2 months for the same person. Obviously, you are going to be able to rent it all the year. Obviously, with a license that needs to be confirmed every 5 years, you need to inform the touristic registry that you want to continue with the license from the 7th of May 2021. It was not before. It's a new law that we have from last year. Okay, John, thank you, John, also in order to join us. It says, I rent out a property in Torrevieja, and as a non-resident, I think it's been explained perfectly by Ignacio, from the UK, I pay 24% tax on the gross amount rent every 3 months. Is there a legal way of reducing these costs?
That's very good. A very interesting question, John. Well, actually, what I would, if we're talking about touristic, the answer is no, because no tenant will pay themselves different bits and pieces. It's impossible because the activity is like a hotel. You just go there, pay X amount of money a day, and you walk away. Now, if you're saying that you are doing the tax as a non-resident, but probably we're talking about long rent from a non-resident or short term, on that rental contract, you could negotiate what is the rent and what the tenant pays. So the key of the tax is what the contract states. So the contract says 500 euros for that, and they are assuming and paying the bills, the community, and everything themselves. It is my understanding that the gross amount from the rental is that amount. It's not an easy one, John, but is worth discussing with your lawyer at the time of doing so, or with your accountant. Okay.
Obviously, that question also would be good. Is also to contact us in order to have a personal meeting or a video conference meeting also.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's go to the following question. Hi, Elisa. Do you pay non-resident tax on each property you purchase?
Right. Yes, non-resident tax is per person and per property, Elisa. So the answer is yes. Jane.
Okay, Jane, once you get a provisional number for a touristic license, can you immediately start renting now, or do you have to wait for it to be official with proper number? Also, we were told a license can take about a year. Well,
in Quesada, which is true. In Quesada, it's taking long.
Quesada sometimes has taken long. I would say that also. But probably in this case, because we already, I mean, we have an office in that area, and we perfectly know in Quesada, and sometimes may take that time. But I would say that normally is reduced, and depend on probably the timing of the year, but. Obviously, you have to have a registered number, and that has to be like a consolidated property registry number.
Yeah, the tax office probably will not be in this situation because it's only about paying the same amount of money. But if it's compatible and it's a matter of waiting, I doubt it that they will start an action against you because you didn't get it. But obviously, it's down to you because officially you don't have the license, and officially you're not able to do that activity, but it's very subjective because I find it difficult to believe they will issue a procedure against you if everything is going to be in process and legal.
The situation is that, for example, these platforms like Airbnb, Window, or Humway, they will require the property number registry properly done and given, not just a provisional one. I mean, they want to be sure that you are have a license to in order to have this kind of activity. So it's something that they will not allow you to enter in that kind of database without that.
Right. We're running out of time. Pedro, if you could just pick the one. I think
William, if I'm moving to Spain on a no-lucrative visa and decide to purchase property after a year of residency, the tax is going to be the same. Will it be a tourist license as well as a resident license? Moving to Valencia. Thank you, William. Thank you for asking. I mean, obviously, once if you are moving with a non-lucrative visa, obviously you are going to be resident in Spain. Non-lucrative visa works for 1 year, and then after 1 year, you need to renew it for 2 years, plus 2 years, and then 5 years. So you have to be resident in Spain. And if you are resident in Spain, and obviously if you spend, I think it's been explained by Ignacio, more than 183 days in a natural year, you are resident in Spain for tax purposes. So at the end, you are going to have to declare your worldwide income in Spain according to the double taxation treaty between Spain and your home country, or the country where you obtain the income. So, and to say, as we're told, license can take about, will it be, I forgot, I lost William. Are the taxes going to be the same? No, because if you are non-resident in a third country, it's not going to be the same. If you are resident in Spain and you have a property in Spain, which we will be able to include also the costs.
Right. Let me just say to Jane, her question about the 40% tax, you could take long-term rental with tenants all the way through, and then you'll have these allowance. So you will only be taxed on the 40% of the net. It doesn't matter, but it has to be long-term. So pretty much long-term is more than a year. And Andrea, that has dual nationality between Romania and Canada. You are European, Andrea, even though you live abroad, it doesn't matter. You are Romanian, and then you could buy the property as a non-resident, but you are really European. So that will be the answer. Now, let me just
Let me just finish with John about applying for different kind of visa, like non-lucrative visa, and as well as if there are any requirement to apply for a touristic visa. It's not a requirement. Obviously, you will be able to enter with a touristic visa in Spain. If you have this fulfilled days of 90 days into 180 days, but obviously while the process of non-lucrative visa, which has to be done in a Spanish consulate abroad, not in Spain, cannot be, that process of non-lucrative visa has to be done outside of Spain. Obviously, you will be able to enter back and forwards. When you get a positive resolution, obviously you must get it, which within a month you have to get it, and then you will be given 90 days to enter in Spain with a visa. And once you enter in Spain, that will be the first day that you are resident in Spain. And once you land into Spain, your representation, your lawyer will have to apply for an appointment in order to get like TIE card, which is a card, is an identification card.
Right. Okay. Before we go, I would like to invite you all, everybody who's in this webinar and our clients. We are opening a new office in London. Well, we're just really moving from one side of the London area to the other side of the road. We're doing an opening day from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Friday. This Friday, I would like to get to know you, to know.
Please come if you are in the area. We would like to meet us personally. Please come to us. We will invite you for some cocktails, some really good wine of that area.
That's good. And if you have the time, you want to pop in and say hello, well, you're more than welcome. Eventually, we'll be doing something extra in September.
Exactly.
But it will be very nice to have you in. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your comments to say that you're getting good information. If we don't see you, have a great summer, probably at the pool or in the beach, because it's pretty hot, isn't it?
It's very hot right now. We hope that it's going to be reduce this hard.
And I forgot to mention, try Alexa and get us our feedback.
Exactly.
As you need to download, as the video stated, down Pellicer Heredia lawyers, and start making questions to Alexa. We only have 100 questions there, but we'll be uploading much more. Okay, Pedro?
Okay, well, thank you very much. And we will see you after summer.
I'm going to pass it over to our friend, and we will see you hopefully on Friday. See you later.
Buying a property in Spain. There are many reasons to purchase a property in Spain. The climate, the food, the culture, or simply to enjoy life. If you already see yourself buying the house of your dreams in the Mediterranean, it is important to be cautious and follow a series of steps. First, prepare a budget and take into account all the possible expenses. Remember to add transfer tax or VAT to the sale price, as well as legal fees, notary fees, and land registry fees. And even if it was love at first sight, do not rush or sign anything. The most important thing, especially if you're not yet a Spanish resident, is to hire an independent lawyer, a specialist who speaks your language and solely defends your interests. Together, you can review the characteristics of the house, should it have pending charges, negotiate a mortgage with the banks, and you will always be up to date throughout the whole process. But most importantly, fall in love with your property and do things by the book. Your new life starts there. Pellicer and Heredia, international lawyers.